Allison recently asked me, I have all of this journaling, I have answered all of these prompts, but how do I take this stuff that I've written and make it into a story? What are the steps? What shape do I need to put it into in order to make it be something I can use? So on today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that using two different forms. In addition, at the end, I will link to a video that's about 5 years old, that's about how to do exactly that, but to make into social media posts, captions. You could even use these ideas in making videos as well, because it's a pretty similar structure. Hi, I'm Julie Jordan Scott. I'm a multi-passionate creative whose anchor art, the art that I've held on to the longest since before I could actually read or write, is writing. Communicating with language. And the favorite people for me to work with are those people who are in the stage of life where they are aging joyfully. They're empty nesting, they may have retired, and they're wanting to get their stories out to the world. I have a lot of other friends who do a lot of other different things artfully, creatively, or in the great outdoors, and I welcome each and all of you here. This video is going to show how to take you from idea to semi-polished story. I often start all of my writing with stream of consciousness, and most of the writers who are out there and really super successful start the same way. Anne Lamott talks about, I think she calls it the S word first draft, or I'll just say the stinky first draft. The first draft, or the ideation phase of your story, is really just about getting your thoughts on the paper. And then once you have your thoughts on the paper, you can whittle away what doesn't belong and fill in what sounds better and just make it into something you can be proud of. So I'm going to give you two different formulas to follow. You can experiment and take the one that works best for you. The first one is pretty conventional. Are you ready? The first recipe has 5 basic components of storytelling: character, context, conflict, climax, and closure. Did you get that? Now I'm confused. Character, context, conflict, climax, closure. Click, 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 click. So these are like puzzle pieces that you put together. I wrote a story so that I could show you how to do this. Now, it's going to be embarrassing for me to read it, but I am going to read it to you so you can see how this works. So first of all, I'm going to take the pieces and put the little moments in there. So it's like, I like to show what I call coming in the back door to see what's inside, and then walking outside and coming back in the front door so you can see kind of the in-process product. So characters. When I write stories, especially when we're looking at like short stories or chapters of a book, the fewer characters to start off with is better. So in this story, you have 3 characters. You have Sophie, who doesn't even appear in the story. She is the 23-year-old daughter who has just left the family home. We have Jane. Jane is the woman who is feeling sad about Sophie leaving the home and is up in her bedroom after she left to move into her new place, is feeling pretty sad. And then we have Mark. Mark is the new empty nest dad who isn't sad that Sophie left home. So context, what was happening in the moment before? What are these people facing? At this stage, you think of the who, what, when, where, why. Sometimes the how as well. So this is basic to journalism, and you want to know this basics before you launch into action. So if you were thinking in a screenplay type setting or in a play setting, your thinking is, what is the stage setup? What's the furniture in there? What's the lighting like? What is the background music? All of those things that isn't the direct language. What are the things that you're wanting people to understand just from the story? Now, you might not write any of this down, but it's good to have them in your head as you're writing. It's like when you walk into a restaurant and you have the smell of the restaurant, so hopefully it smells good. Hopefully you're like, immediately what came to my head was a restaurant in Richmond, Virginia that my friends took me to. And we walked through the door, and as soon as you walk through the door, the aroma was just like, I was drunk on Italian food before I'd even taken a bite. And so it was pretty, it looked a little bit Italian with the decorations, with the music, with the whole thing. Oh, fantastic. Don't remember the name of the restaurant. Don't even remember what I ate. But I remembered my friends, how kind and generous they were, and how much I enjoyed the occasion. Okay, so let's get back to this story. So the context is this adult child has left home. The mom is feeling sad that her child is no longer living under the roof. She's moving on to a new phase of her life. She's not really sure what her identity is now that she's no longer Sophie's mom, first and foremost. And she's also kind of confused, and I didn't write this in my notes, but she's like, what the heck is up with Mark? He doesn't seem to mind this transition at all. Okay, so the conflict is Jane. The conflict is between Jane and Sophie a little bit in the background, and Mark. And the climax comes when Sophie's dad, Mark, comes into the room, and he's ready to celebrate freedom. He's all amped up because they finally have their house back. So Sophie's 23. In my mind, she has older siblings. Like my family, my oldest is 33, my youngest is 24. And so consider for 33 years, you've had kids about at some point, because as they each go out, there's a younger one there. So it's been a long time for Jane and Mark to have the house to themselves, if you know what I mean. I'm not gonna tell you what the closure is. I'm not gonna tell you what the climax is, okay? So you're gonna have to hear this in the story itself. Are you right? I'm just gonna read it straight from here. Unedited, hidden, raw, and embarrassing. Jane's shoulders hunch as she quietly surveys the pale pink bedroom. She can still smell herbal essence shampoo her daughter Sophie uses in the air. She looks out the window and hears Sophie's voice from years ago as she was riding a two-wheeler for the first time, and Mark, her husband, was applauding wildly as if he had just seen the Reds pull a grand slam home run in the World Series after the game being tied for 3 extra innings. She looks to the corner where Sophie's long-ago toy chest is open. Her daughter threw things in there willy-nilly as she packed up to move to her new apartment, objects she didn't know whether to toss or keep. In limbo were high school team hoodies, last year's Halloween costume, and Christmas pillows from Grandma, which Sophie never even wanted in the first place. Jane kneeled beside the chest, pulling out a blue and white softball jersey and holding it to her face, trying not to cry. At that exact moment, Mark appeared, his voice growling, the voice Jane called SV, or sex voice, saying, "Hey babe, we're free. The house is empty. We can start playing in every room again, just like in the old days." Without knowing what she was doing, Jane threw Grandma's pillow with all her might, and it flew into Mark's face with the force and speed of Andrew Abbott. Caught off guard, Mark fell backwards onto the plush and slightly stained carpet from years of wear. Jane was nearly as shocked as he was. All she could see were Mark's hands and feet floating in the air, as if he was either wrestling with years of guilt or was a slightly drunk sowbug. She couldn't help but start laughing. She knew she would miss Sophie, but she still loved the ridiculous drunk sowbug on what would soon be the guest room floor. "Mark," she giggled, "are you okay?" Mark replied, "If I say I feel okay, will you take off your clothes and join me down here?" He was smiling hopefully up at her, and he winked. Jane laughed, sadness erased for a moment. She wasn't simply Sophie's mom anymore, but she could once again be Mark's dream girl. "You better believe it," she said as she fell to the floor on purpose. Oh, I like that. There's a lot of places that can be cleaned up, but I do like the premise. I think it's funny. And it's so very short. It's very short. So I'm not usually a fiction writer, so I'm stretching myself by sharing that with you all. All right. The second model to use, and as I share these bits and pieces with you, I would like you to think back at the story that I just shared between Mark and Jane. Cooper. Whatever you're chewing up, stop. Cooper has another cameo. Okay. So the first is the introduction, which is where you set the stage for the characters to play on. Where in the story did you notice that happening? Because I did do that. Give shape to the challenge ahead of them. See the first actions a character takes in response to what it is they're facing. And in this story, very different responses to the challenge. Mark doesn't see it as a challenge at all. And Jane's, feeling kind of sad. Although you might say that Mark was challenged and was wanting to cheer Jane up. So what better way to cheer her up than to invite her to have sex? Then add to the picture. What are the actions and choice of the character showing the reader about the conflict in the situation? Fourth is the climax. So it's similar. There's a similar build, and then denouement, which is, I didn't pronounce that correctly, but that's what comes after the climax in a story. So at the end of the story, it's like, it just doesn't have a, this big thing happen and then nothing else happens. This has a one sentence denouement, but in longer stories, like usually there's in a book, for example, there's a chapter or 2 or 3 where things fall back into place. It's no longer the frenetic pace that led to the climax. Okay, so the denouement brings it all to a close. And it's good to find an emotion in that denouement stage or the ending stage and use that to either tie a bow or to leave the audience hanging. If you're a fan of foreign films like I am, oftentimes you're left hanging. Some people don't like that. How do you see those pieces working in that story that I shared? I wrote in my notes, the quickly written, not edited story. How do you see it working there? And then finally, I wanted to let you know that you too can make videos when the situation isn't perfect. Yes, you can. Yes, you. Cooper. Oh. Such a good boy. Such a good boy. Oh, yes, you're such a good boy. Okay, we're going to put you down now. Go back down the floor. So as a primarily nonfiction writer, I'm familiar with how to take a prompt and turn it into an essay, a blog post, a caption to a video, a caption on a social media post, anything like that. So there is, if you are primarily working in nonfiction, I have a video for you to watch called Turn Your Journal into Content Gold in 5 minutes or less. Turn your journal into content gold. It will be here in, not sure which side, but one of these. And you can watch that, and there's a whole playlist that is similar to that I will put over here, and you'll be good to go. If you have any questions, put it in the comments too, or send me a message, because the reason I made this video is because Allison said, hey, I have a question. Please give me an answer. And here I am, always wanting to help you out. So thanks again for watching. I am very excited to hear how you take your stacks of journals, your letters you've written, your emails, your notes scratched on envelopes, and how you turn that into something you can use in a piece of writing soon. Take good care. See you on the next video.